Well, hello and welcome here to this Ignite Press book launch livecast. I'm excited today because today we have a really a different kind of book, a different kind of author. In fact, this one is completely unique, and it's one of the reasons I'm excited about it. Now, before we get to our special guest, and just share with you that here at Ignite Press, we specialize in helping people bring their message to the world through books, through the most powerful medium ever created. And if you have a book inside you, or you've written a book, or you have thought about what a book might do for your business or brand, reach out to us at ignitepress.us. That's ignitepress.us. So I want to get to our special guest, and Jill Vershum is our guest. And today she is launching her book, My Macaroni Sings, Your Guide to Cultivating Creativity in Children. Now, Jill's a consultant and executive coach. She collaborates with leaders of diverse cultures, generations, and careers to make changes that matter deeply. By the way, she's also a certified integral master coach, and she works with lots of people to help them gain focus, clarity, and results. She's also a grandmother, and that is going to influence this book greatly. So let's get her on the stage here with us. Jill, it is so good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me and hosting this.
This is a big day. You've been working on this book for a while, and here it is. It is now live on Amazon. People can get it in Kindle and paperback, and I am just excited for you. Now, before we go too far, tell us a bit more about your background and how it led you to this book on creativity and children.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned a couple of things. I'm an executive coach, but I've been in the field of education and human development and very specifically leadership development most of my career. In the last 20 years or so, I've worked in organizations and with leaders, but the last 10 years, I've worked one-on-one with a lot of executives and coaching, and creativity emerged, and I'll talk about that in just a second. I also had grandchildren about 15 years ago, and I began to watch creativity grow in them and different from them. And ultimately, I began to explore this thing called creativity. I wouldn't have called myself creative. I wouldn't have called myself an artist. And I took a course that changed my life in late 1990s, around the first of the new century, called Artist Way by Julia Cameron. And I took the course. I visited her speaking and I read the book. And suddenly I decided this thing called creativity was far more than just art ability, because I didn't have art ability. And so I studied more and more about creativity. I explored my creativity. I bought a book just to learn how to sketch, just to sketch ideas. And I ended up loving portraits and have drawn and painted and sculpted portraits and other things I do. But the thread in all of that, as a grandmother, as an executive coach, as a leadership development consultant in organizations, now even as an author, the thread is creativity. And the book converges with studying it through the lenses of those three areas the last 10 years for sure.
Excellent. Now, what inspired you? What inspired you to write this book? Because I know you didn't set out. I'm thinking 5 years ago, you had no idea you were going to be writing a book about creativity and instilling creativity in children. What made you go, I'm going to write a book. I need to write this book to be in the form of this best way to deliver my message. What inspired you to do that?
Well, I first started recording and writing little case studies about 5 years ago. Yes, you're right.
Oh, okay.
Writing a book, but because people didn't understand the word, everybody thought creativity. Well, first of all, I encountered leaders who either said, "Oh my gosh, I'm not creative," or thought you're either creative or not. And yet, when we worked together to make changes they wanted, we often uncovered some block creativity. And once they learned that and released it, that vast human potential they had, things just opened up, and they were either more effective as a leader or personally they became unstuck. So that began to be a pattern I saw quite a bit. So I started noting it and writing it down and using it in my coaching practice. So that was a big influencer. And then last year was my 10th year of, I created art dates with each of my grandchildren separately for many years, and then brother-sister art dates for years. I wanted to use art and creativity to get to know them and help them develop it, because you'll see in my book, you use it or you lose it, and children often lose it in those middle school years because they have a mindset that they're not creative, and that forms often in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. So anyway, I began to design these creative experiences that were beyond art. They included art too, but beyond art. And then I'd use some of them with leaders. And so I thought about writing a book for leaders to capitalize on my coaching practice. And then last year I decided I had 10 years worth of these creative experiences developed. I decided I need to give these to other people. People need to be using them. Our future generation needs to never believe they're not creative, and to learn what creativity really is, and to grow that human potential within themselves. So I decided a book was the best way to get that message out. And quite frankly, I had to decide, do I write a book on leader development, which is my field, or do I kind of go into cultivating creativity for children? I really decided the best way was get adults on board to understand creativity and give them an arsenal or lots of tools to help them help others develop it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting what you're sharing, because so many of us think that, okay, if I can't do paint, artistic things, if I can't play an instrument or something like that, like we have this narrow view of creativity, and yet as leaders, I think creativity is absolutely critical, and it sounds like that's what you've encountered and that you're helping to share, and that and the same thing that helps our grandchildren. I don't have any yet, but I hope to within the next year or two. But the same thing that helps instill creativity in children can also be applicable to our leaders. So tell us a bit about, you said art dates. I heard that phrase, and you've talked about some of the experiences, you've alluded to experiences with your grandchildren. Why don't you guide us through, like, what is an art date, and how does that have impact?
Well, an art date, I call them grand art dates, but grand art dates now for me are very intentionally designed. So, for example, I'll take during COVID, because we had a lot of them. I had the kids weekly. So for one example was doing tie-dye. So a grand art date for me is creating curiosity, helping them have something to think about or why we would be doing it. And then it's planning some activity. And then in the case of tie-dye, my grandchildren told me about it, and order dye kits and different things. And so it took a couple hours to learn what to buy. Then the next week we tried it out, and the creative part is they do whatever they want, and they learn not that they produce something, although that's a piece of it. Rather, they learn that it takes effort. Creating takes effort, that sometimes there's some serendipity. You don't know what'll show up. You tell your story to others. That's a key part. And all these are developing mindsets and skill sets for creativity. And in fact, I don't know if you have the graphic on the 7 practices that you could show?
Yeah, let me pull that up here.
Okay, I developed in the book, it's in the book, 7 practices I call it a framework that helps anybody cultivate creativity. So when I say grand art date, it has to be something that engages them in play. I try to bring what's inside of them out. That is imagination or curiosity, or get them to talk about their feelings or write about their feelings. So that's what the inside out is. And then a key part of grand art dates or cultivating creativity is making connections. And my distinction is connections with people and connections with the environment. The skills are, you want kids to learn to make connections, to be confident with people, to regard people, be kind to people, to have compassion. So all those skills sets are outlined in the book. And over time, they can be created with, say, a grand art day. Awareness is a big one. Many of you know it as mindfulness. I teach the kids to pause and be aware in the moment, what's going on in their surroundings, how do they feel, bring what's inside out when they're in their surroundings, and then sharpen the senses. Grand art dates and cultivating creativity are always about the five senses and having them tune into each one. And a key part of creativity is telling your story. So I encourage the kids or anybody to tell the story. And it could be telling someone, it could be preparing a gift for someone and giving them a gift. It could be writing them something, sending a postcard. But the skills of sharing and being proud of yourself and knowing that you matter are important skills there. And then, of course, originality. It's not creativity if you don't create something unique. And you notice that was the acronym there, or the mnemonic was Picasso, too easy to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for walking us through those. I really love the way you've gone about this in a very organized fashion. For instance, you're not requiring your reader to reinvent the wheel. You're giving them something objective, a guideline they can follow to help accomplish this. And I love the senses. I remember some of the early, maybe our very first conversation we had about your book, and you were talking about your process of um, of of asking, okay, what are you experiencing right now? What do you hear while you do this? What do you feel while you do this? What does this taste like? What does it, that you're trying to get having your grandchild tune in to the other things around that were part of the experience. So it wasn't just like, okay, we're working with, let's just talk about tie-dye. We're not working with just the colors, but what do you feel when you're wrapping the shirt, right? And what do you feel? Are there any smells to it? And I think that was nice. It's another way to reach in and go deeper into the experience. Probably helps them remember it better too. Would be my guess. How did you come up with this? How did you create this mnemonic, the Picasso?
Well, I originally had five things. I always create curiosity, but I did a lot of research. The first half of my book, or not the first half, the first part one of my book is a lot of research on what creativity is and is not. And the more I read what it is and is not, I decided there has to be an easy way for somebody to remember that. So I started with five, and then I read about Picasso, believe it or not. And we all know him for all the art, but there's a lot written about his creativity and his mind. And I just, some of the five I had fit into his name. So I just played around just because I wanted something easy to remember. Mnemonic's a memory device. And so I just changed them slightly, and then it worked. And so that's kind of how I came up with Picasso, to honor his equally creative as he is an artist and defining creativity, and two, to have a framework for people.
Frameworks are critical, right? You need a framework so people can remember what they're doing and execute it and make it repeatable, right? It's something that
Yes.
they can do. Let me put this up here. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that the book is available today on Amazon. It's available in Kindle and in paperback. And actually, the Kindle is on a special launch price. You can get that today. Um, and if you're watching this on a replay, I'm sorry you missed the special price, but get it anyway. But pick up your copy today. And this is a great book, not just for you personally, but for anyone who interfaces with children, who desires to improve the lives and the outlook of children, whether that be a parent or a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a teacher, uh, a mentor. Any of these roles would find this really spot on, really spot on. Now, I want to come back to go here. I want to come back to a question actually that came in from in the chat log, and this was, and you alluded to this, and so Zelda asks, how do you differentiate between what creativity is and what it isn't?
Well, I start the book, chapter 1, with the 5 truths about creativity. And all 5 very specifically help with what it is. One is everyone is creative. So, and it's within you and it's there, whether you used it or developed it or not. So one is, how do you know that and tune into it? The second one that's very big, though, and what this question may be alluding to, is there is strong association that creativity is about being an artist or a musician or something. And so the main way I started differentiating is for those 7 practices, those 7 Picasso call to action practices. In my book, I've created mindsets and skill sets for each one, so that when you'll see that it's about kindness to people as well as it is about art or drawing. So there's a whole chapter with what are the mindsets and skill sets in creativity. Also, organizations today are calling for more creativity in their hiring. They want leaders to be creative. And so I started differentiating that as, and so's the world, by the way, not just me, as creativity is problem solving. It's taking diverse ideas and putting it together in something unique and original. And it's how you get along with people and collaborate. And all of those are wrapped into the skills of what it takes to be creative.
Okay, excellent. You also wanted to get to this, and that was, how do you start that process? How does somebody initiate this process of the journey of cultivating creativity?
Thanks for that question. That also speaks to audiences. The way I would ask anybody to start, and have asked people, because I told you I coached a lot of leaders who discovered they had creativity that didn't know it. So the first thing I would ask anybody in our audience is, if you read the book, read chapter 1, 5 Truths of Creativity, and just sit back and pause and spend a little time on what's your belief system about creativity. What's your what have been your thoughts? What have been your experiences? A lot of people experienced some really debilitating attitudes by others when they were young. So they just quit doing anything creative. So the number one way to begin is just, if you're going to help any children or open up areas for yourself, what's your current way of thinking and what do you believe about it? If you're someone who believed you're not creative, there's a lot for you here to open up. If you believe you were creative once, but then life got in the way, then you might want to examine, is there time to re-energize with being creative? So that's certainly one way. And then if you are working with the children, I've made it as easy as I hope I could, not only giving you the 7 practices, but I created a worksheet. There's a worksheet in the book that tells you how to plan an experience. I pretty much can guarantee you once you've planned one or two or read a couple that are in the book, they'll just start flowing. But the key is you do have to deliberately plan an activity. You have to really work to create curiosity. During whatever you're doing, you have to ask questions and help the kids become even more curious. And then ultimately, you have to take a long-term approach. None of these skill sets and mindsets happen overnight. And in fact, a key premise in the 5 Truths of Creativity is if you don't use it, you lose it. And so you have to keep kind of priming the pump, so to speak. And so I've put worksheets in the book on how to do that. I've also put 36 different examples of how they're used. You don't have to use all 7. You can mix and match. You can create your own, but you do have to deliberately over time work so that people and kids don't adopt that mindset they're not creative, or adopt the mindset that creativity is only art.
It's really good. There was an element of what you put in your book. There's a lot of really cool things. For one, even just what you talk about, haiku. I did not know that haiku was supposed to be able to be read in one breath. I always thought it was just about the line count and that type of thing. The one breath never occurred to me. Thank you for educating me. And then you have a series of activities that you can be utilized for these art dates. And you have gone through, and each one of them, you have kind of scored against your mnemonic. And I really appreciate that. So for instance, I'm looking here, I'll just hold this up here for the serendipity and slime exercise that you have here. And you've gone ahead and put your mnemonic and highlighted which ones that activity really speaks to directly. And I thought that was a very creative and useful element for inclusion in the book. And I know that was, you've got a lot of these in here to help people so that they don't have to like pull some magic thing out of their hat in order to know what they can do. Like here's Valentine pots for ages 4 to 10. You list out the supplies that are needed. You describe the exercise. You talk about, you just guide everyone through it. What an incredible resource this is, Jill. Thank you for making it.
And you hit the nail on the head. My effort is to give back all I've learned. My main goal is to give as much, know the approximate cost, know some of the time, know what it can do, know which of the Picasso 7 are going to really be emphasized. I wanted to have that and the worksheet in there, how to do it, so that people can pick this up and do it. My ultimate goal isn't the book, although we need to get the word out there. My ultimate goal is we make sure this generation coming up has no block creativity, and that we unleash some of this vast human potential. There's a lot of blocked creativity in the world. So let's start with the kids.
And in doing so, you'll impact generations, right? It's because you'll impact them for the rest of their lives, and then their children and their children's children. So really, really wonderful. Now, Jill, there's so many exercises in the book or activities for art dates and things like that. Is there one that your grandchildren have been, is there one that's been their favorite?
That almost brings me to tears, Everett, because unequivocally, their favorite is I have 12 creative categories of experiences, and one is sculpting, and one of the stories is slime. They wanted to use slime, and I didn't know what it was, and so I gave you a couple pictures if you want to put them up.
Yeah, let me pull this up.
Slime gets your hands in it. You can shape things. You can add things called additives. And it took us, I think I mentioned this earlier, it took us like weeks to buy what we needed and then play with it. And then you can put it back in the jar and reuse it. And so we did that for one summer, many weeks, and then other years we did it. Last year at Christmas, we bought everybody a little packet of slime, and on Christmas, that was the game, playing with slime. So
this is not the slime I grew up with by any means. I think of that gooey green slime that came in the little can, this looks like you guys have had fun making your own here.
That, and there's, see those, that image that's up, that's Madeline. It has additives you add, it has sparkling stuff you add, it has trinkets you can add. And so it just, as you can probably imagine, just unleashes imagination, and they use their hands and they think about what they want and they shape it the way they want. And it's really the epitome of creativity, the whole experience. Then, of course, they tell everybody. They told everybody, and storytelling is an important part of creating mindsets and skill sets of creativity.
I'm going to guess their friends wanted the same experience next, and they probably think you're the coolest grandma ever. So for the readers out there, if you want to know how to make slime and have an exercise, how to have an art date with your grandchild or any child, the recipe's in here. It's all right here, the instructions of how to do it. So now, Jill, we just have a couple minutes left. First, is there anything else, any parting thought or idea that you'd like to leave people with?
Well, yes, my parting thought is certainly buy the book, but not just to buy the book. Please take action. I call it the book's a call to action for adults to examine themselves and get on board with helping children with this. And so take the call to action and do something with it, and tell others about it, and write to me. I have a website and I have a landing page with that, and I'll have a blog starting in 2 weeks. Tell me about it, and pretty soon you'll be inventing your own, but it will take a while to begin to see how these skills grow in children. So,
Jill, you mentioned a website. How can people reach out to you?
My website's Jill Vershum, JILLV as in Victor, ERSHUM or jillvershum.com. And I have, you can contact me on that as well. And you can learn more about cultivating creativity. I coach to cultivate creativity. You can learn about the book on there.
Excellent. I put that in the chat log for everybody. Well, Jill, thank you again for your time. Congratulations again on your book, and for really dedicating the time to make sure you created this message that you could share with others to help instill creativity in children. Excellent. Thank you for doing that.
Everett, I want to thank you and your team as a closing remark. We started talking last June, and it's just been one really great collaboration since then. So all of you, not just you, but there's so many people behind the scenes. This couldn't have happened without you all. So I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's really been our honor and pleasure, and that's our joy to do these things. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Jill, and thank you, listeners, viewers, watchers as well. Please pick up your copy of her book at Amazon. You can get it there for 99 cents on the Kindle version now. I encourage you to go do that. And then if you have a book in mind, a message you'd like to see brought to the world, we're here. Just reach out to us at ignitepress.us. That's ignitepress.us. And you can actually arrange there to have a consultation directly with me. We can talk about your message and your goals and see where it takes us from there. So thank you again for joining us.